Next we have Hit Joshi on Privacy Preserving Technologies 101, How FOSS Empowers Digital Freedom. Hit Joshi is a passionate computer science student and a founder of Mukti, the largest FOSS club in his state. For Privacy Preserving Technologies 101, How FOSS Empowers Digital Freedom. He will explore how free and open source software safeguards privacy and promotes digital freedom, sharing insights from his work in cybersecurity, AI, and projects like Kava, a post-quantum IoT security framework.
Namaste, everyone. Lovely to be here today. And I hope it's audible at this rate, not too close. Yeah, cool. Right, so I'm going to be speaking about privacy and FOSS. When you first hear about this, it seems logical, right? Free open source software, privacy goes hand in hand. So let's explore today the intricacies of what it actually means. Also, this talk is centered towards students primarily who are a little bit uninitiated into the space and want to harden their current setup to be more privacy oriented. So we'll be looking at alternatives you can be using which are FOSS based and also more privacy oriented. Yeah. Cool. So I just want to scare you first a little bit with a few statistics. Cyber attack occurs every 39 seconds. So assuming this talk lasts for 40 minutes, that is 61 attacks by the end of this talk. Another is 44% of all data breaches involve personal customer information. That is, these data breaches occur on more corporates, and you as a customer, whatever billing info, addresses, anything that you have saved with these companies gets leaked to the internet. Social media is one of the largest collectors of personal data. Meta alone is collecting 79.47% of all legally collectible data. Okay? And this is Meta alone. There are far other players in the space. Right, so let's look at privacy in the more Indian context, what it means for our little country. It is a fundamental right under the part 3 of the Constitution and an intrinsic part of the Article 21, which is the right to life, right? And there have been many landmark judgments over here. I won't get into a lot of detail about them. But the outcomes of these judgments has been that the Supreme Court has passed that privacy is given to you as a fundamental right. So it is your right and not a luxury, okay, as it is marketed today. So yeah, again, a famous quote, you are the product. How many of you agree, disagree? Agree? Yes, yes. Cool, cool. So today, if you're using anything for free, no one is out here doing service apart from the FOSS community who is just giving you cool services and not taking anything in return, correct? You use Instagram today, you're looking at reels and all of that, that's great. Good entertainment. Have you ever thought about the implications that has on, or what has been, it's been doing to your data, right? I do have a few comic strips coming up later on that will better explain this point, but yeah, just always remember this. Right, a few news clippings from very, I think last month itself. One very major thing is that the income tax department can now read your emails and social media and all of that. And this is, it might be a shocker to most of you, but yeah, this is announced and it is a pretty solid thing. Again, I'm not debating whether it's right or wrong from the government perspective. I'm leaving the politics out of this talk. But just go back, read on this, read multiple articles so that you don't just get opinionated towards one opinion, right? And make an opinion for yourself. I'll just leave it at that. I'm just bringing to your attention these news clippings. Another one is that UK is again calling for a backdoor into iCloud data with a secret order. That is, UK tells Apple that, hey, I want a backdoor inside iCloud, and iCloud has to comply with them, or else UK is going to be like, okay, iCloud is done for the UK. So unless they don't comply, iCloud is at risk in UK at least. Is this the first time? No. There have been a lot of cases as such, and multiple governments have been asking for backdoors. FBI is infamous for this. Again, not bringing politics into this. Facial recognition glasses turn everyday life into creepy privacy nightmares. So Meta Ray-Ban 2 are the glasses that have been released, I think, this year at CES, if I'm not wrong. And they are able to identify people and tell you their names and whatever social media handles or something like that. There was a feature marketed along the similar lines. And just imagine how insecure or privacy invasive this particular feature is, correct? Because if today we are asking people who are attending events for their consent to be photographed or not, and this is just blowing that out of the water, saying that if I look at you, I know something about you, which is pretty privacy invasive. Is there anything being done on it? Probably not, but that is where we come in. Right. The agenda for this talk is simple, 5 points. Surveillance capitalism, FOSS philosophy and privacy, fighting back utilizing FOSS, addressing concerns, and closing remarks. So in the third point, it is more of a how-to guide on how you guys can improve your services and what alternatives you can use that are FOSS-based and more privacy-respecting. So let's start with the first one, surveillance capitalism, right? So before I move to the next slide, I just want to ask you, what would this term mean to you? Any guesses from the audience? Just shout at me, that's fine. Any ideas? Surveillance capitalism. Capitalism making money, yes. Insider information, cool. Yes, I saw hands there somewhere. No? Cool. All right. Partially correct. We'll look into it. So what it means, a system where your attention and data are mined like oil, refined into profit by companies. And the worst part of this is that we don't even know to what extent they're doing this, right? It is pretty alarming. And yes, one of my agendas for this talk is also to leave you guys scared outside this hall and think about the decisions you're making while using some services. It is not just about tracking, but also transforming all of your digital interactions into profit at the expense of privacy and autonomy. Okay, and there are multiple core threats, as you can see over there. But yeah, so surveillance capitalism. People are invading your privacy to make money, as simple as that. Okay, moving on. So surveillance capitalism can be broken down into 3 key aspects. The font is a bit small, I apologize for that. One of them is mass surveillance, then planned obsolescence, and filter bubbles. Okay. These terms are not coined by me. These are already existing in the privacy ecosystem, and you can go out and find the sources. I'm sorry I didn't include that. But yes, moving on to mass surveillance. What does mass surveillance mean? That every online action that you make is a panopticon where your behavior is constantly tracked. For those of you who don't know, panopticon is a sort of a jail where there is a watchtower in the middle and there are cells surrounding it, right? So you don't know if you are being watched or not, but it is completely up to them. If they want to monitor you, they'll freely monitor you, but you are always under the fear of being monitored by the central tower. That is what the panopticon is in this case. So be it backdoors, be it this way the terms of service have been defined in these softwares, you do have a very good chance of being monitored. That is, let's say I have an Instagram account and let's say some terrorist as well has an Instagram account, right? So if the government wanted, they could look into the terrorist Instagram profile, obviously, right, as they would do. But there is also the threat that they would also be able to freely monitor mine without any legal implications, because that's there in the terms of service and you agreed to it while making the account. This data is later used to target content you see and sold off to the highest bidder. There's no surprises there. That's how Facebook, Google, all of the big names make money. Planned obsolescence. Okay, now this is not really related to privacy, but it's a huge threat that I would like to address. That let's take Apple for example. Okay, I'm not a huge Apple fan, even though my talk is being presented on a Mac. Is that a lot of the devices that Apple makes are planned to go obsolete after a certain period of time so that you keep on buying their repetitive products. You've heard of the Apple ecosystem. Now Google is making their own ecosystem. Nothing has its own ecosystem. Hell, even Samsung has its own ecosystem. Right? So why do they trap you into this ecosystem? So that you're loyal to one company. And once you're loyal to them, they'll make the durability of the device lesser and lesser and lesser and lesser. Okay? There was one case against Apple called the Battery Gate, where they identified that using each of the software updates, they would manually push up these updates to older devices, making the battery capacity lesser, even though the device is fully capable of being used for a longer period of time. Apple would make sure that you would not be able to charge the device to its maximum potential. Okay, and they were fined for this, obviously, and yeah, they paid money to the court. Did consumers benefit? Maybe. Debatable. Another byfactor of this is that e-waste is exponentially growing because of such things by corporates. A term is filter bubbles. So what are these filter bubbles? All of us know about algorithms, yes? X has its own algorithm, Instagram has its own algorithm, YouTube has its own algorithm. This is how they recommend you content. This is how they recommend what content you should watch and what shows up on your feed. Who makes these decisions for you? Did you choose to watch that particular meme? I don't think so. It just showed up on your For You page, and you're like, oh, cool, that's funny, right? And you liked it, and the algorithm registered that, and it will only serve you that sort of content. So, for an example, right, if you are, let's say, a right-winger, politically, right, you will only be served content that is related to the right wing, that serves your agenda, that serves your perspective. You did not make that decision for you. You would still want to see content from all across the things. You would want to see opinions from all across the place. But since the algorithm is programmed in such a way, you only see things that are centered to one specific idea, right? Obviously, now you may argue that, hey, but I can just search on the Instagram account and I'll just follow a few hashtags and then I'll be served that sort of content as well. Well, yes, you can do that, but that is the manual effort and the knowledge of this already happening. This also gets a little bit morbid because the content that you are served is not always very good. So TikTok is infamous, sadly, and there have been a lot of deaths, okay, because people who were suicidal were served content that, pushed that forward, and it's very unfortunate. But did TikTok respond to this positively? No, they didn't make changes to their algorithm. They didn't do anything to make sure that this was a thing. Instagram did do a few steps. I think they added things like hiding the like count, hiding comments, stopping comments, all of that. That helps. But did it fully stop all those cases from occurring? Maybe not. Maybe not. It did help, but maybe not. AI today, right? LLMs, ChatGPT. I'm sure all of you have heard of a few cases where the AI chatbot as well encouraged the person to go ahead and do the deed, in this case. And there was no boundary or there was no proper censor in that case. Obviously, by each model, they claim to release good updates and better censorship. But yeah, that's up to you. Cool. Moving to the section 2 of the talk, FOSS philosophy and privacy. Right. So I'm sure all of us over here are aware of the FOSS philosophy, right? Since we are all gathered at the FOSS meet, that is freedom to modify, study, and redistribute our software or hardware, in this case, further on, right? And I will be touching on hardware as well a little bit, as Rahul sir clearly said, right? Open hardware isn't much talked about, and I feel that it should be. It should be, okay? And I do have a section in my talk for right to repair, which I will cover, and that is very, very important, even considering privacy, okay? Okay, actually, before I move on, can any of you list a few points, since all of us do know the FOSS philosophy, that how the FOSS philosophy inherently protects our privacy? Shout at me. Anyone? FOSS philosophy protecting privacy, our privacy, user privacy. Correct. So you can, it is completely transparent, correct? That you can study what the code is doing, is if there is any telemetry, if there is no telemetry, and who the data is going to, or what APIs are being called. And if you choose not to abide by that, you can edit the code and remove that and use the code forward, correct? Yeah. So these are the few core tenets of our FOSS philosophy, that is freedom, transparency, and collaboration. I won't touch much upon this because it's pretty common knowledge now. But yeah, freedom. You have the right to study your code and hardware. And you yourself own it, right? So you have complete autonomy over what you choose to do with it. There's transparency, so there's always open for audits. You see a software. There's a very interesting case study that will come forward, and this will enhance the point. But it is always free for audits. You can check for backdoors. And if there are any things that you want, if you don't want, you can remove them. Collaboration, of course, since it is developed by us, that is a decentralized community who just wants to code for good and develop liberated software and hardware tools. This inherently prioritizes ethics over profits. If a corporate was to make the same software, they would be like, oh, how will this make us money? Over here, we are solving a problem. So we just want the problem solved. We don't care about profits from the software. There are exceptions to this, but yeah. FOSS is critical for a privacy resilient future. Think about it. If there was a privacy solution I had, what was the best way I could distribute it to a mass? Make it open source, correct? Give it to all of you for free as well. That way, the software would get far more traction than maybe if I release it as a proprietary product. Take any example, Firefox, Signal, Prav even, right? A lot of them are open source and they do help privacy. Look at Tor network. Tor is the backbone of privacy, I would say, today. And it's doing wonders, the whole Tor project. And people were able to make contributions and improve it only because it is open source. Yeah, it breaks the resilience on big tech's walled gardens. It's the backbone for many anti-censorship solutions. And also, last but not the least, privacy is a human right, and FOSS provides tools that you need to defend it. There are, of course, a few challenges and nuances. That is, for example, if you take the funding conflicts, right? Taking the example of Firefox. Firefox, I don't know if most of you know, but it relies on Google for 80% of its revenue to be the default search engine inside the browser. Okay, that is a bit of funding conflict. That let's say Google, if Firefox releases something incredibly open source or privacy friendly, Google may pull back, saying that no, you take that feature back, or I'm going to cut your funding. What do you think Firefox will do? I'm not going to answer that. Right? But yeah, just make an answer for yourself. Usability gaps. Cool, yes. So this is very important that, let's say, GIMP or LibreOffice or many open source tools do have a little bit of usability gap. I would argue that today this have been majorly reduced. The interfaces are not as bad as they used to be, let's say 5 or 6 years ago. The front end has improved very much and it is very user friendly. But yeah, some of them still do have a steep learning curve. that users who are maybe not that experienced will have to take their time, learn it, and get used to it. Right, so this was the case study of exeutils. How many of you have heard of this? Hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cool. ठीक है. So most of you who don't know, let me quickly brief you up. Exeutils is a library in Linux, right? Which was used for compression and a lot of things. It was used for SSH primarily, right? And it's a very core library inside of Linux. In March 2024, a backdoor was discovered in its few versions, I forget the versions, who were inserted by a contributor, Giatan, and that's her GitHub profile. It's still up if you guys want to go and give comments. But the backdoor modified SSH authentication to grant remote access to systems. Okay? Understand. The backdoor modified SSH, which is a remote way to get inside of your system, and it provided remote access to many systems in the authentication system itself. So you don't even have to authenticate before using, if you're using that version of exeutils, I can just directly SSH into your machine and use that backdoor. Very scary. And this happened in Linux. Linux is the forefront of FOSS. We tell everyone, oh, use Linux, use that. But comes with a caveat. Right? We really have to study, we have to go through the code as well. And thankfully, Andre Feud, I probably butchered the name, sorry for that, but he noticed a higher CPU usage during SSH authentication and investigates finding the backdoor. Imagine how insane and crazy that is. He just saw there's higher CPU usage while he's authenticating using SSH, and he's like, wait, there's something fishy over here. He goes, dives into it, finds that there's a backdoor, tells it to the public, and leaves. What a Chad, okay? Insane. And because of that, Giatan got, her GitHub profile is freezed. She got kicked out of the list, obviously. And they quickly released a version of exeutils that was, that fixed the backdoor. Now, there are two aspects of FOSS highlighted over here. Any guesses? Cool. One of them, you want to talk? Accountability, yes. So one is, since it is open source, that is, since it was public, people were able to audit it, right? That, oh, okay, this line of code seems to be the backdoor, and I should raise an alarm over here. Second thing is that how did this backdoor come in the first place? Correct? Because since it's a FOSS thing, someone approved that contribution, right? So that means that Giatan has been a long-term contributor inside of this library. She gained enough community respect that not all of her commits are manually checked, okay? And once she reached that stage, or they reached that stage, I'm not sure, they were able to just give a commit and that got accepted. Right? So we do need good accountability and, yeah, something to think about. Right, here we go, right to repair. Very interesting field that fits with privacy and by empowering you to take control of your devices. Okay, how many of you have utilized your right to repair? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, not many. Why? What happens? Okay, I'll give you an example. How many of you use, let's say, ThinkPads? Okay, some of us, right? Cool. So recently this happened that I spilled tea over my ThinkPad, as you do, and I opened up the ThinkPad, removed the battery, all of that, and was quickly able to find a replacement keyboard for 1,500 rupees on eBay, okay? If this was, let's say, a Lenovo or let's say a HP laptop, the keyboards are soldered onto the frame of the laptop, which makes replacing them very difficult, for the lack of words. Okay, it makes it insanely difficult. Nowadays, you have soldered RAM, you have soldered SSDs, okay, which means you cannot upgrade your hardware. Who took this decision for you? Did you want your RAM to be upgradable? Yes. If I'm using 8 GB RAM, I would want to, in the future, maybe upgrade it to 16 GB RAM. Yes, why don't I have that freedom to do that anymore? Why is the company taking the decision to do this for me? Right? Not only that, but a lot of different caveats. So, yeah, sorry, the point of this was that you do have the legal right to repair, modify, and maintain your gadgets, and you're no longer forced to rely on manufacturers whose repair services are invasive. Okay, I don't know how many of you use Lenovo devices, but Lenovo has this repair thing called Lenovo Service Bridge, which wants you to download a piece of software on your Lenovo device, and it will connect to their servers, and it will manually detect what problem your system is having and report it back to Lenovo. Do you know what that software is doing? No, it's a black box. Do you know what data it is sending to Lenovo? No, again, it's a black box. Okay, so something to think about. Use your right to repair how much ever you can. Right. So we'll get into the little bit easier part of this talk, is that fighting back by utilizing FOSS. Okay. Let's talk about browsers for a change. What are browsers? Everyone knows. Browsers are gateway to the internet. You put in URL, you get result. Pretty cool. They have search engines. They have multiple libraries. They have multiple plugins. You can customize browsers nowadays. All good. Most browsers we use today, however, have a poor track record in terms of privacy. How many of you use Google Chrome? Wow, nice. How many of you use Firefox? Nice, nice, my crowd. Okay, how many of you use some other option? Let's say Brave. Sorry? Zen, good, good. Who else? Anything else? Zen? Sorry? Okay. Yes, anything else? Sorry? LibreWolf, nice, nice, of course. Good. Yes, perfect. So Firefox, for those of you who don't know, is open source. And Chrome is nowadays installed in a lot of machines by default. Firefox is also installed in multiple Linux distributions by default today. And there's a different version of Firefox, that is Firefox ESR, that also comes pre-installed in most of the devices today, Linux devices today. Right? There is also Edge. How many of you have deleted Microsoft Edge from your Windows distributions? Windows itself. Not talking about that. No. How many of you have Windows with Edge still installed? Okay. Do you guys know you can remove Edge? Microsoft won't allow you to do that by default. You can't just right-click on Edge and say uninstall. No, that's not how it works. There's a script that you have to run, okay? Just go today, look back into it. It's called Windows 11 or 10 debloater, and you can select the softwares you want to keep, the softwares you want to remove, and run that script. It runs on, come on, yeah. IoT Enterprise Edition. Oh, nice. I didn't know that. That's amazing. That's pretty interesting, right? Thanks for that. So yeah, go ahead and do that if you want as well. Right. So Windows IoT Enterprise Edition apparently comes with no Microsoft bloatware as well, and you can spoof you as being an IoT user, is what Madhav was saying, right? Cool. There's also multiple distributions. There's, I think, liberated Windows edition itself. I think I showed it last time. I don't remember the name of it, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll talk to you outside if that name comes to my mind. But yeah, browsers, anyways. So this is the comic strip, correct? He's talking about, let me just read it since the font is pretty small. I won't read all of it, but when you read the current privacy policy, you will find that Chrome collects your IP address, the words you search for, the videos you watch, the pages you visit, the ads you click, your purchase activity, network of people you're in touch with, and much more. And Chrome is doing this by default, by the way. All facets of your life are scrupulously collected and sent back to Chrome. So, right, that cartoon, right bottom corner, is one of my favorites. Why? Because it shows your browser or any proprietary software for that matter as a two-way mirror. What is a two-way mirror is that you can see your reflection, but people on the other side of the mirror can see you as is. Okay? So you feel that you are using the product, but the product is using you. That's what brings us back to the statement that you are the product, but yeah. So I'll be talking about these two things, browsing the internet safely. And one of them is Firefox and one of them is Tor. Now Tor is a browser as well, but it is based off of Microsoft, based off of Mozilla Firefox, sorry. And, but moreover, it's a network architecture, right? It's a protocol and it's a whole network. Right, so Firefox is currently the only mentionable open source contender out there, but it still has issues with sponsored content, with telemetry, and a few proprietary things such as Pocket. Okay, there's a feature called Pocket in Microsoft Mozilla that is beside your URL bar. There is a small Pocket icon, and that is still proprietary. You can use different versions of Firefox as well. There is WaterFox, there is LibreWolf, right? That's based off of Firefox, right? If I'm not wrong, yeah. And there are multiple plethora of options that you can use. Oh yeah, Brave, before I go, Brave, by the way, is still based off of Chromium, and those of you who advocating that, oh, I don't care, I mean, you know, I use Brave. Brave is pretty safe. It is not safe, but Brave itself is collecting your data. If it might not send your data further, Brave itself is collecting your data. It's based off of Chromium, and yeah, its VPN as well has a lot of issues. Its VPN servers are, I think, in China, if I'm not wrong. And yeah, your data is not pretty secure even if you use the Brave inbuilt VPN, right? We'll touch on VPNs as well, but yeah. So when I talk of Tor, how many of you know about Tor? Most of us over here, cool. How many of you have used Tor? Lesser hands, okay. Cool. So the way Tor works is that there are 3 nodes in the middle. Let's say, can you see the diagram, everyone? The bottom left diagram. Yeah? So there's a Tor client which is there on your device. It connects to the entry guard, the middle relay, and the exit relay, and then the exit relay relays the information further to the destination. Okay, and the core principle of this is that no one node in the Tor relay knows both the source and the destination simultaneously. That's the whole principle with which Tor works loosely. Okay, that let's say the entry guard knows you, but it doesn't know the website you're sending it to. It just knows the identity of the middle relay. The middle relay knows entry guard and exit relay doesn't know where the information has originally come from, but it knows the destination. Okay. Again, the data is encrypted except for the last link that is between the exit relay and the destination. But yeah, I won't go into much detail over there, but let me address a very popular question that I get, is that can Tor be traced, or is Tor illegal to use in India or in general? It does have a lot of benefits, but it is not fully illegal, at least in India yet. It is illegal in China. It is illegal in a lot of censor pro countries, for the lack of better terms. But there are ways to bypass that, obviously. There are anti-censorship solutions that you can use in these countries and proliferate your information to outside as well. But again, your identity is, again, not fully safe on Tor. There are ways with which you can be de-anonymized. Your true identity can be revealed. So use with caution. And again, there's a lot of content on Tor or on the dark web itself that is pretty disturbing. So use with caution. Okay. Moving on from browser is the easy transition to search engines, right? And I'm just comparing the two. I don't think you can read the image again. So let me just do that. These are points which are mentioned in the terms of service of these search engines, okay? One is Google. So Google's terms of service, which you have agreed to, says they store your data, or even if you did not interact with the service, your identity is used in ads that are shown to other users. This service can read your private emails. This service can view your browser history. This service holds onto content that you have deleted. Scary? Yes, no? What is the alternative of Google? Well, a very popular one is DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo, only one caveat is that instead of asking directly, the service will assume your consent to the terms of service after a little bit period of use. So that, let's say you have not accepted the terms of service of DuckDuckGo for, let's say, 1 day or 2 days, it will assume that you have already accepted it and it will, accept the terms of service for you. But that is not a big thing because you can delete your account and the duck address fully. You don't have to register at all to use DuckDuckGo. And the service provides an onion site as well, which is accessible over Tor if you choose to. So there is this website called TOSDR, that is Terms of Service Didn't Read. And I highly recommend all of you go to that website and look up any tool or service that you have been using. Okay, maybe not right now after the talk, but yeah, I would highly recommend go ahead and do that. You'll find very scary things out there. Search engines that I would recommend is, one is SEARX, Cirx, I think it's pronounced. It is open source, aggregates from various search engines, and can be self-hosted, also supports Tor. DuckDuckGo only aggregates from Bing and Yahoo, okay? And it is region agnostic search. That is, there's a drop down in DuckDuckGo with which you can select what region's content that you would want to see. Let's say you've selected India, you can turn it off and you can just go worldwide, and then you'll see search results from all across the place. Okay, I'm sure you've used it. If not, I highly recommend. And the third one is a bit quirky. It's Ecosia, which is, it provides Bing results, but it also plants trees for all of your searches. It's pretty interesting. Give it a look, give it a look. Right, a bonus slide, haha. It is VPNs, right? And normally when you work in security and privacy, you get asked a lot from your friends that, what is the best VPN I should use? Okay, is it Nord, is it TunnelBear? I don't know. So I've not used any of those. I've used Proton VPN since many years and it's worked flawlessly. I also highly recommend the whole Proton suite of tools, that is Proton Mail, Proton Drive, Proton VPN, all of that. Even though they're not fully FOSS, but they do have very good privacy initiatives. So if you want a no maintenance, no headache solution and a good alternative to Google, I would say Proton is the way to go. Then is Mulvad VPN, that is Mozilla's solution. It is outside the Five Eyes countries and it stores no logs. So again, I didn't cover this, but Five Eyes countries are the countries that include Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom and the United States. And they party to the multilateral agreement for cooperation in signals intelligence, which means that these countries will share their information and intelligence among each other and things like that. So having a VPN server inside of the Five Eyes country implies that they will be forced to, one day or the other, give this information to the government if asked for it. Okay, so Proton and Mulvad so far are not based in the Five Eyes countries. RiseUp VPN is based in Five Eyes countries, but it is also very popular censorship circumvention tool that most people use, at least I've heard. But yeah, take it with a grain of salt. Okay, because it is based in the Five Eyes countries, so you could be de-anonymized if you do. I'm sure none of you will do things like that, but just caution. Phone OSs, cool. How many of you use Android? Most of us? Yes, please? Cool. How many of you use a flavor of Android, that is Redmi or Samsung or things like that? Yeah, most of us do, right? I don't think, there are only two main players who offer stock Android experience today, and that is, from what I recall, is Pixel, obviously. That is the Google, and Motorola. And also Nothing now. Nothing also, it comes with a little bit of bloatware, but I think that is to interact with their very cool hardware. But yeah, it's debatable. So I won't mention Nothing, but yeah. Google and Motorola definitely are providing very good stock Android experiences. Let's say you're bored of Android and you completely want to remove all the Google Play services, many different telemetry things. What should you do? Well, there are two options. One is a more softer approach. That is, you can go to your settings and disable a lot of privacy and security invasive settings that are already there. You'll find a lot of videos on YouTube for that. But if you want to, let's say, get rid of Android itself, you can use one of these ROMs, that is Lineage OS, Graphene OS. Again, as I think Praveen earlier mentioned today, that you will have to unlock your whole bootloader, and there's a whole process that you have to do, and it is not normally very user friendly if you're not very tech oriented, right? It's pretty simple. I think the documentation is very good, especially for Lineage. Lineage documentation is outstanding. Okay, but again, the problem over here is this hardware support. Like, what models of phones are they supporting today? I cannot find one for my phone, so I have two options: either to keep using Android or make my own Lineage OS this thing, which I cannot do. I'm not capable of that. Right. So Lineage OS, go ahead, look at the website. They have a lot of devices listed. If your device is listed, wait for your device warranty to be over and then switch over to Lineage, because if there's anything, just don't do it when you have warranty. Graphene OS is now only for Pixel. I think they are slowly expanding towards other devices as well, but that will take time. But if you have a Pixel, please use Graphene OS. Amazing privacy-oriented OS. And a friend of mine who is in cybersecurity has been using it, and she's been getting good support even for banking applications, for some government applications as well. There's obviously very many things you need to do to get these apps to work on that particular OS, but if you're brave enough to do it, you can do it. Okay. I think mentions to Sailfish OS as well. That is another one that comes to mind. Cool. Lineage OS uses something called MicroG, which is Google's proprietary core libraries and applications alternative, right? So let's say YouTube or something like that will want you to sign in with a Google account or use your phone number and things like that. So MicroG helps do that with some magic, let's say, and circumvent all of that, protecting your privacy and protecting your data from data leaks. So yeah, consider MicroG and look into it, or at least read about it if you aren't aware. Private messaging, cool. 4 main apps that I would recommend is Signal. Signal is amazing. Signal is, I think, one of the very good apps out there. It's fast, free. The voice and video conferencing I would not recommend on Signal because it is a bit laggy today. But there is an option with which you can use a proxy as well and configure the proxy yourself. So all of your data goes through that proxy and only then goes to the Signal servers if you're even conscious of that, right? So you can self-host your own proxy and things like that. But it has a centralized architecture, has end-to-end encryption, and works with zero-knowledge principles. Then is the whole matrix network. So matrix network, for those of you who don't know, is a protocol, and it relies on decentralized structures. No number required to register, end-to-end encryption, all of that. And you can use the matrix network with a lot of user-friendly front-end client applications. One of the very popular ones is Element. Okay. So go ahead and do that and connect with me on Matrix, because I don't have anyone to talk to on Matrix because no one uses it in my circle, right? But yes. Also, a very interesting thing is that I don't know if this was long. It was not long back, but I think near 2022, if I'm not wrong, Government of India banned Element, okay? But Matrix network worked. So switch over your network to, let's say, Fluffy Chat, and you can still use Matrix. Insane. They thought banning Matrix Element would do that, but this just reflects choice making, I guess. But yeah, something to think about. Jami, for a very, very interesting app that doesn't get enough traction. Jami, this is a GNU-funded project by the FSF themselves, and it is self-hostable. It is free and libre as well. You can be fully anonymous on this. It is P2P and end-to-end encrypted. It has support for all desktop, Linux, Windows, whatever you're using. Jami is fully supporting. And I also do use Jami. So I normally use Signal for communicating with a few individuals, Matrix for group chats, and also Prav. Prav is of course, Prav uses XMPP, a user-friendly approach, and based on Quixi, with added moderation and other features. It can be self-hosted as well. I think this is the only option amongst all of this, except Matrix, that can be self-hosted. But it is currently available on F-Droid as well. If all of you want to go check it out, please do. There are a few communities on Prav, especially the open hardware community and the security community are two of my favorite ones. So join Prav and maybe use one of the group chat features. Very, very cool. Privacy focus on GNU Linux, right? So if you still use Linux, maybe try to switch over to GNU Linux because it's a whole thing, Richard Stallman. But yeah, use a more privacy-focused distribution. Let's say Tails OS, Kodachi are the two main ones which provide a privacy-centric approach to Linux. These OSs help you route your system traffic through Tor or a VPN. They also provide options for RAM wiping, and they also support Mac spoofing. Okay, so take a picture of this if you want, and if you want to really strengthen or harden up your Linux distribution right now. App Armor is another epic kernel security module that you can configure and play around with. It offers profiles for each and every program that is running on your machine, and you can choose what a program can do and cannot do, right? So you can really fine-tune those things with App Armor. Linus is another security audit tool which checks for configuration errors and security issues. And please use UFW, which is a firewall on Linux. And by default, on most of the distribution, it comes as disabled. I highly recommend all of you enable UFW and configure your own rules, enable a few port numbers, disable a few port numbers, because if you have an inbuilt feature, why not use it, right? UFW you don't have to install on most of the Linux distributions, I think. There's only one or two that maybe don't come with UFW, but yeah. Right, so if you want to really harden up your Linux, I would say use this GitHub repository that is by Trimstray, which is a practical Linux hardening guide. Okay, and this will give you an in-depth approach on how to go step by step with all of the features. Very important thing is owning your cloud. Okay, if you're a university student, I would highly recommend at least self-hosting a cloud for your semester or for your batch, where you can have all of your notes, all of your PPTs, anything like that stored inside of that cloud, right? And by hosting your own cloud, you will learn one very important thing, that is system administration. That is not normally taught in the college curriculum. At least it wasn't taught in my college to me. And it'll make you more responsible, that how to host your cloud on, let's say, a domain, right? How to make sure it is always up. Then you can configure security for that cloud, and you learn a lot of things along the way that you wouldn't have otherwise. Nextcloud is definitely one of those popular ones that come to mind. Obviously, how many of you have not used Nextcloud? Oh, damn. Okay, I'd highly recommend at least self-host a version of Nextcloud on your home PC, first of all, and use it as a backup. Okay. Proton Drive, again, it's not fully FOSS, but it's a very good alternative to Google Drive if you want a more privacy-focused option for Google Drive. Duplicity is mainly for backups. It isn't a self-hosted cloud solution, but it is mainly for backups. Okay. Yes. Okay. I've covered that. Addressing concerns. FOSS tools are normally seen as complex or having a steep learning curve. What would you say to this? Well, my argument to this is that over the years, the documentations have really improved. Okay, most of the tools I've used today have very quality documentations. If you contact one of the developers or the maintainers, they are always happy to help you, either over messages or over email or anything like that. So anything, please reach out to them, and the community is very helpful to these. On Reddit as well, you get a lot of community support. There are multiple forums like Ask Linux or Ask Ubuntu and things like that. When I give talks to students, right, especially back in my state, the number one argument I get for privacy is that, oh, my data isn't that important, or I'm just a student. What will happen if my data got exposed? What will the hacker do with my data? Right? I'm a student at, let's say, Ramaiah. What's the hacker going to do with that? That's a very negative way to look at things, but it's also a very valid argument that why would you want to take the additional overhead and switch to a more privacy-focused alternative just because you feel your data isn't that important? Well, my answer to that is that it builds your digital profile and influences your opinions and behaviors as well, as I told earlier. right? So your data is not only important for your own mental health and for your well-being, but also if collected in mass, let's say your whole class's data was collected, I could influence your, let's say, political decisions and things like that. So a very popular study or a popular case is the Cambridge Analytica case in the US with whole Facebook and all of that, where uh, Cambridge Analytica was fined because they were able to manipulate election decisions in the US, right? And this is what happens when they collect your data. One other argument is that if you think your data isn't that important to you, why do you have locks on your phone? Right? Keep it as swipe to unlock if you feel your data isn't that important. So there is obviously something inside of your phone which you feel is very private to you and only you should know, and that is why you have a lock screen, correct? So think about that as well. Again, a very popular concern is that there's no proper customer support for FOSS. This is valid, but again, as I said, there are multiple communities and a lot of people who would be willing to help you out. Putting messages in these forums normally 80% of the time solves our problems. So please reclaim your freedom over your data. Closing thoughts. I'll leave you with two quotes. One is by Edward Snowden himself. In a world where privacy is seen as a luxury, remember that it is a basic human right. Okay. And the other one is by Richard Serra. This again is the classic statement. You are not the customer, you are the product. So Richard Serra is the person who started this whole quote. And yeah, that's about it. That was my time. So I'll end at that. If there are any questions or suggestions or things that I should correct, things you have to scold me for, please feel free. Yes. So there are multiple other OSs, obviously post-parted being one of them, but I just included a few that people already would have heard of. Obviously, yeah, post-parted is also one of those great alternatives that you can use. Sure, I'll edit that in my slides. True, true. Anything else?
What about the philosophies of open hardwares? Like softwares have some philosophies like use, modify. What are the things will hardware
I think,
holds?
yeah, I think the philosophy stays the same in hardware as well, that you should be able to open up the hardware, study the hardware itself, right? So today, let's say I give you Google Home, okay? I ask you to study Google Home and tell me how it works, where the things, all of that are. So you'll have to completely rip apart Google Home and you're not sure if maybe when you reassemble it, it will function as it used to function before. Because it is not meant to be opened up by the customer. Okay. You won't find documentation on it. You won't find repair guides. Obviously, there are people who have messed around a lot with their Google Home and only then they have come up with a guide, right? If I were to tell you, can you replace the assistant inside of Google Home with some other assistant? Will you be able to do that?
Like it is like software.
It is software, correct. But
That
at
hardware thing is like Sparks Fund. That are the hardwares. Like
correct.
they will be releasing the software hardware philosophies like list of bill of material receipts. Like we don't have free and open hardware because it costs us.
So there have been multiple companies who are working towards open hardware. I think one of them is,
Sparks Fund.
sorry? Rustway. Rust 5. Risk 5.
Risk.
Yes. Totally. Sure. That is one of them. Framework, if you've heard of the company, is working on this, working on totally.
But it is not in India.
It is not in India. Correct. Look, in India, you will get very few. That is up to us. That is our responsibility, correct. I think there's a person, Abbas Abhinav. He works very much on liberated hardware. He runs this website called mostlyharmless.io that you should check out. I've actually interned under him as well. So pretty solid guy. And well, what we do over there is that we build keyboards, right? Programmable free keyboards. I've also developed IoT solutions. So it's there in your house, and you can open it up and you can modify what sensors it can talk to. You can add more ports onto it if you want, solder in a few things if you want to. So that sort of a thing. And plus, I think the PCB part will be covered tomorrow in the workshop. So please do attend that if you, I think Sri Kumar is a very good person to talk to.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Sorry?
Not KMI. QMK.
QMK, yes.
Were you using that?
Yes, yes, QMK. QMK is the standard, I would say, firmware that you should use. And it works flawlessly, very good documentation, right? If you have switches lying around, try making a macro keyboard. It won't take that much time, hand soldering, right? And just 3D print your case, put the switches inside it, it'll work amazingly well. Any other questions? Cool. I think we'll talk outside if there are. All right. So I'll end the talk here. Thank you.
So next we have Kamala Velan sir. He'll be talking on the topic of taking your first steps in the FOSS ecosystem. So let us join Kamala Velan sir, a dedicated FOSS advocate and technologist, as he takes you on a journey into the world of free and open source software with expertise in Clojure, Python, DevOps, and cooperative models. Kamala Velan has been actively involved in fostering open source communities and empowering developers.